Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Maseches KEREISOS Daf Yotes. We begin on Yud Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. V'Rami, Rabbi Yochanan. We seem to have a contradiction within Rabbi Yochanan himself. V'Rami the Rish Lakish, the Rish Lakish likewise between Rish Lakish and Rish Lakish. This loops back to yesterday's discussion regarding Yedias Safek. So, if a person discovers with certainty, with definity, that he ate a piece of chaylev, and then he becomes unmindful again, eats another one, that Yedias Vada, having discovered with certainty that he sinned, it bookends the episode and separates the two eating experiences and makes him liable to two karbanis. What about Yedias Safek? That was the topic of yesterday's discussion. He comes to realize that perhaps there was some chance that it was chaylev. He doesn't know one way or the other. And then later on, after he ate all those portions, with these interspersed with these semi-realizations, Yedias Safek, at the very end discovers in fact it was chaylev. Can we just group them all under the same hailing, the same unawareness, and give them one group rate, one chatas for all? Or do we say, no, they were separated, or divided, by having this somewhat of realization in between? The perhaps realization, the asafik, is it qualified for yediyah? To split them or not? We don't think it's yesterday, and Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan as well expressed their opinions. Rish Lakish says, yeah, Yedias Safek does split. Yedias Safek does count as somewhat of a Yediyah. Rabbi Yochanan says, no way. Now we seem to have a contradiction within themselves. The Sani, we have a brayso regarding a totally different matter. A fellow became tummy and entered the Mikdash. The halacha there is that it has to entail 3 steps, 3 phases: knowledge, ignorance, and realization. So he knew that he was tummy, then he forgets, walks into the Mikdash, and then he realizes what happened. That triggers a korban. But if there's no yediyah to begin with, no proper knowledge of his circumstance, that he in fact is tummy, it will not qualify for a korban at the very end. The Sanya, we have a brayso, shnei shvilim. We have 2 pathways. Echad tummy v'echad torah. Under one they buried a mace. They came back a while later, I can't remember which. So now we know one of these 2 pathways is tummy, one is tar. So if you walk on one, well, maybe you became tummy, but it's only a safek. If you walked on both, then you know either way, mimanav shech, you're tummy. V'halach barishan. Reuben walks along one path. Lo nichnas, does not yet enter the Mikdash. At this point, he's only a safek tummy. But then, before he does anything, he takes a walk on the second path as well. That confirms his tummy status. Either way, he's tummy, right? Nichnas b'sheni. Sorry, b'sheni, he walked through the second path, v'nichnas, and then he enters the Mikdash chayiv. He has to bring a korban if he did it b'shegei, because he's certainly a confirmed tummy. Either way. Next case, halach barishan v'nichnas. He walked along path A and entered the Mikdash. Came back out, v'hiza, v'shana, v'taval. He went through the whole tahara process. He got sprinkled from the paraduma waters, did it again on the 7th day, went to the mikveh. Now, before he did anything about the first possible infraction, he walked along the second road, and he entered the Mikdash. Chayev. Once again, in this case, again, he has to bring a korban, because either way, he had entered the Mikdash when he was tummy. He did it twice. Once after the first path, and once after the second path. One of these 2 made him tummy. One of these entries is eligible for a korban. So although he did not have a confirmed status, he didn't know for sure that he was tummy after each separate experience, but in the totality of things, looking back at the whole picture, between both, he certainly violated once. We turn to the next topic. Rabbi Shimon Poiter Bazu. Rabbi Shimon exempts him in this case because you need to have a yediyah. You need to know for sure that you're tummy, which he didn't in this case. As he entered, each respective experience only had a suffix tumah. Rabbi Shimon Poiter Bazu. So in this last case, it wasn't a vada yediyah, it wasn't confirmed, and therefore it's not considered knowing. But in the first example, it would seem like he is chayiv, even according to Reb Shimon. First case was he went through path A and then path B and then entered the Mikdash. Because in that case, he knows that he's tamei. Either way, that qualifies as yediyah. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Poiter Bekulan, Mishum Rabbi Shimon. But according to Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, he says that Rabbi Shimon actually would exempt him on the first case as well. Ask the Gemara why. If I feel become even the first case when he entered after going through both pathways, why? Amar, let me explain to you what happened. My skin was speaking as follows. He walked through pathway A. And then went over to road B. However, when he walked on road B, he had selective memory. He forgot that he went through road A. While he was walking on road B, he forgot about the fact that he went through road A. And that's how he entered the Mikdash, with that half awareness. Now, if he would be mindful of both parts, that's called a full yediyah, because between the two of them, he's fully tamei. But he only was mindful about half the story, half of the whole. Now, this is better than the second case in the Brisa, where each entry was distinct and separate. He had gone through road A, entered the Mikdash, and then was Tahir, which bookends that episode, right? And he starts fresh with road B, enters the Mikdash. Each case must be dealt with individually, and each case is only a suffix. But here it's better because he went on road A and immediately on road B. So between the two roads, sum total, he's tamei vadai. And if he would be mindful of the whole story, of course he would have a full idea, but he had selective memory. He only remembered the second part of this whole picture. And that's the point of machlekes. Does that qualify as idea or not? When you recall half, a proper half of a full story, is that enough or not? Tanakama, who held that according to Reb Shimon, in the first case you'd be chayiv. Savar, he holds miksas yediyah k'yediyah damya, partial mindfulness in a situation where if he would have just recalled the whole thing, he would be fully aware, fully confirmed as a tamei in his mind. K'yediyah damya, we treat it as though he's fully knowledgeable. As long as he remembers part of the story, it's like he remembers the full story. Reb Shimon Savar, no. The part that he remembered doesn't suffice to make him a confirmed tamei. And since he's not mindful of the rest of the story, or the rest of the picture, that's not enough. Reb Shimon Savar miksas yediyah lav k'yediyah damya. So Reb Shimon Yehuda was quoting Reb Shimon to say that his example, because it's not sufficient for a full yediyah. Okay, so now we've explained the first part of the Brisa. Partial memory, does it count or not? Let's go back to the second part of the Brisa, and that's going to be the focal point of our discussion. That speaks of a yediyah suffix, right? One road, just suffix, entered the Mikdash in that state. Was Mentire himself, started fresh. Road B went into the Mikdash. Each individual episode is only a suffix. The question is why? His entry after each individual road is just a suffix. Suffix tamei. Why is he chayiv a korban holoi have le yediyah? He didn't have a confirmed yediyah about his tumah status because each road is just a suffix. So if he would have traveled both roads and then entered the Mikdash, okay, but here he traveled one road, went into the Mikdash, became tahor from that possible tumah, and started again with the second road. Amr Ishlokash Hamani Rabbi Shmoli. Oh, this price is like Rabbi Shmuel, who doesn't have that precondition, doesn't have that requirement of yediyah prior to entry. True, there was no yediyah. This seems to contradict Rish Lakish, who told us yesterday that even a yediyah about a possible issue is considered yediyah, and here he seems to say it doesn't because he has to go to Rabbi Shmuel. That's going to be the question. Rabbi Yechon Amar, he says no. Even the Rabbanon would agree in this case. Even if typically you need a yediyah, it qualifies. Kan also in this case we consider suffix yediyah, even a yediyah about that possibility of tumah. Yediyah is considered like a full-fledged, bona fide, confirmed yediyah. And the Gemara figures it's not specific to this case. General halacha. The Gemara figures kan also we consider the yediyah suffix over here and elsewhere as well, which is direct contradiction to Rabbi Yechanan, who told us yesterday yediyah suffix doesn't qualify. Kashid Rabbi Yechanan. We have a contradiction within Rabbi Yechanan, and likewise between Rish Lakish. Kashid Rish Lakish. Answers the Gemara. First Rabbi Yechanan. Bishlam Rabbi Yechanan like Kashid. Rabbi Yechanan could be answered like this. He never meant apply this principle elsewhere. This is unique. Only by tumah. Kanos, over here we considered it as a yediyah, because we have a lower standard, lower threshold of what's required. But elsewhere, we don't consider a yediyah suffix. My time, why is this special? Here it says he totally forgot, it was concealed from him that he was tummy, entered the Mikdash, indicating that prior to entry he had some inkling, not necessarily fully confirmed, some inkling is enough. Yediyah, the ispa, nami, suffix chayiv kra. Even a yediyah suffix, idea of possibility of tumah is enough. But typically, regarding other issues like a chatos, he became fully aware. Is the yediyah hu d'mechayiv? If he has a full awareness, full knowledge, yes. But anything less than that does not cut it. El Rish Lakish kasha. But regarding Rish Lakish, we still seem to have a contradiction. Because earlier he told us yediyah suffix suffices, and here it doesn't take that route. Instead of aligning the brayso with Rabbi Shmuel, who discounts the requirement for yediyah, look what Rebbe could have said. It's going like Rebbe, who told us yesterday, according to that interpretation, that yediyah suffix qualifies. You're right, he could have done that, but he was trying to teach us another point, that in fact Rabbi Shmuel truthfully does not require yediyah, which is interesting fact to know. His point was to teach us the Rabbi Shmuel, nami, that in fact Rabbi Shmuel does not have that pre-entry knowledge requirement. Well, it says the Gemara, is that his point? That's well known from a Mishnah. The Snan of a Mishnah, Rishmal Eimer, Venelam, it says Venelam twice. So some learn from that you need that yediyah before and after, but if you apply it for a different halacha, as we're going to see in a second, he doesn't have it available to teach us the yediyah requirement, so obviously he discounts it. L'chayiv al helam tumma al migdash. Two types of concealments. He forgot that he's tummy or forgot that it's a migdash. Basically, he applies it for a different point. So clearly, in fact, he does not have that requirement of yediyah b'tchila. Why does Rish Lakish have to come teach us this point again? Israel, there's a point to teach us. There's room to think. Mikra less, like true, he doesn't have a source from the pasuk to require yediyah b'tchila. Mikmar Isla, perhaps he has it from Torah Sheba'al Peh. Kamash, when the point is no. According to Rishmal, there's no requirement to have yediyah b'tchila. Okay, so we have this halacha regarding yediyah suffix. Does it count or not? Regarding Chiyuv Chatas, Rish Lakish says it counts, Rabbi Yechon says it doesn't. We find a brisa regarding Tumah where they seem to say the opposite, and the answer was no. Rabbi Yechon was just pointing out that by Tumah, even an inkling is sufficient, but typically you need a proper idea. Rish Lakish could have said idea Safek counts, but he was trying to point out that according to Rishmael, there's no requirement for idea before entering the Beis Hamikdash with Tumah at all. Continues the Heilige Mishnah. Until now we spoke about a fellow who was uncertain, he had a Safek. Did he sin or not? That triggers an Asham Tali liability. Here comes an interesting case. He knows he transgressed, but he's not sure of the nature of his transgression. For instance, we'll have 4 examples. Chaylev v'noiser lefanav. He had a piece of forbidden fat, a piece of forbidden noiser. Either way, he shouldn't be eating it. And he ate one and then b'shoigig. V'achal echad men. Problem is he doesn't know which one he ate. V'ein idei ez men achal. So he certainly violated, but he's not clear on the specifics of his violation. What does he do? Another example by Arayis. Ishta nida, his wife nida, v'achoyse and his sister, imam bais in the home. Shogag v'achas men. Got involved unintentionally with one, not sure which one. Either way, he transgressed. V'ein idei ez men. Shogag. Next, he did a malach where it was Shabbos, let's say, followed by Yom Kippur on Sunday. He did a malacha on one of these days, not sure when. Shabbos, Yom Kippurim, but also malacha ben Hashmashis. He did malacha ben Hashmashis, twilight between the 2 days, not sure which time zone he was in. Also, in all these cases, we have a machlekes. Rabbi Eliezer says it's sufficient to be machayev bechatas. As long as the person knows he sinned, he's good for a chatas, even though he's lacking that specific information about the nature of his sin. Rabbi Shua Poiter, Pasuk says asher chata ba. He has to know the specifics of his transgression. Amar Rabbi Yossi, I just want to take issue with that Shabbos Yom Kippur interchange. All agree. In the case of malacha ben hashmashis, he's going to be potter because there's a much more basic question there. Shani Oimak could speculate that in fact he didn't violate at all, because if he did it on the interchange point, maybe half the malacha was yesterday, half tomorrow. Mixas asaya, mixas asalamachar. The malacha was split between 2 time zones. So in that case, certainly you can't hold him accountable. So when do we have machlekes in this type of case of Shabbos, Yom Kippur? He did a malacha all day. He turned on the light, and he can't remember if it was Shabbos or Yom Kippur. But the day is not showing Shabbos also, Yom Kippur also. Another example, a fellow did a malacha. He's not sure. Did he flip the light or did he shech the cow? He's not sure which malacha was related to. So in all these 4 cases, he definitely did something which triggers a chatas. So as a person, he knows he sinned. Or in terms of the actual masa, he can't really define it. He doesn't remember. Shabelezer machayev chatas. It's enough that he knows that he sinned. Rabbi Shua Poiter. Rabbi Yehuda, you should know. Poitra Yehoya Rabbi Yeshua af Masham Tali. Don't think Rabbi Shua only exempted from a chatas. He's part even Masham Tali. This doesn't qualify for Asham Tali. Asham Tali is where he has a suffix whether or not he sinned. Here he knows he sinned. It doesn't qualify for Asham Tali. Now, when we speak about an undefined Isra, how undefined? He's not sure between what and what. Meaning, how far apart are these 2 possibilities? Reb Shimon Shazuri, they both explained. There's no question. Let's say he's not sure whether he picked the date from this tree or from that tree. That's called Mishem Echad. It's the same nature, the same 2 things of the same nature. Of course, all agree is Chai. That's close enough. Even though he can't pinpoint a specific tree. Even Rabbi Shua would agree. He knows which malacha, Al manachalkus. So what's the machlekes about? Al davar shum beis shemis. when it's a matter of two different types of malachas, or even similar malachas but of different nature. Rashi says, for instance, you have two types of tree, two trees, two types of fruit, let's say, figs and dates. Or furthermore, let's say we have two types of malachas, plowing and harvesting. So these are two distinct malachas, and if he's not sure which one he did, we have this machlekes, shebeleza machayev chatas, beleza obligates. Ultimately, he knows he did malacha, even though he can't specify the specific details. But B'shua Paiter exempts him. Now Rashi points out this discussion spills over to another point as well. The pasuk which says, "Oyhoida elav chatas," became aware of the chatas asher chata, but that he sinned with it. Shachata, but that he sinned in this, has two applications, says Rashi. Firstly, like we said, in order to trigger the chayiv chatas, he must be cognizant, according to B'shua, about the specifics of what he did. Furthermore, it relates to way back when he initiated the malach. It had to have been done with a targeted focus, with the intent of doing this specific masa, but not if he was preoccupied with something else and inadvertently did this malach unintentionally. That's called misasik. He's preoccupied. It doesn't relate to him. It's not his doing. So Ashachat teaches us two things. In order to be accountable for doing a malacha, you have to know what you're doing. The intent had to be for this specific result, this specific malacha. And secondly, when he becomes aware that in fact he's sinned, of course this is all b'shagi, right? Becomes aware, he realizes. Again, he has to realize, he has to be cognizant of the specifics. So there are two elements of specificity that we learn from Ashachat Haba. The act, the initial act had to be done with focused intent, and the realization after the fact has to relate to the specifics of what he did. That would be Rabbi Yeshua's interpretation of the pasuk. So, for instance, way back when he was doing the malach, not realizing that it's Asur or that it's Shabbos, he was trying to pick a fig and he picked a date. That's misasik. It's a totally different masa, and does not trigger echatas. Rabbi Yehuda seems to repeat what he just said, and the Gemara will discuss exactly what he had in mind. Even if he intended on doing figs, and he picked grapes, or the opposite, novim, grapes, he picked figs, shchayres, darker figs, black ones, Lavanis did white ones. Lavanis wanted the light ones. We get shchars need the black ones. Rabbi Yeshua says that's misasik. It's pater. Rabbi Lezer obligates him. And according to Rashi, Rabbi Yehuda continues. Rabbi Yehuda Tmihani in pater bar Yeshua. In fact, it's a wonder that Rabbi Yeshua would actually exempt him in this case, where he was really trying to pick. He was trying to do a malacha. Turned out that it was the wrong fruit, so what? They're close enough in proximity. That doesn't qualify for the exemption of misasik. So what then is the pasuk min Ashachat Haba that he had to have the targeted focus and intent? Problem is misasik. Yeah, if he was preoccupied with doing something which is permissible, totally uninvolved in Isser, and then inadvertently got involved with an Isser, that's called misasik. But in this case, we're trying to pick the apple, he did the fig, he's chayiv. So we pretty much covered two elements of a related topic, specificity. One regarding the initial ma'asa, which triggers the whole accountability. That ma'asa isser had to have been done with focus, with intent, as opposed to somebody who did it in a preoccupied state. Next point, when it comes to B, he has to realize and be cognizant of what exactly he did. That's Rabbi Yeshua's opinion. So let's go and focus on that point now. Tanya or Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer takes issue with that. Who cares about the specifics. Either way, so in the case where there was chaylev and noiser, he knows he had one. Who cares which one? If he ate the chaylev, he's chayiv a korban. He noiser achal. If he ate the noiser, he's also chayiv. In the second case of the arayis, Iyishtani the ball is chayiv, Yachoyse ball is chayiv. In the case of the Melach on Shabbos or Yom Kippur, either way, Iba Shabbos, Asa Melach is chayiv, Iba Mekippurim, Asa Melach is chayiv. So, hold them accountable. And be sure, no. The pasuk requires specificity. We learn at Shivadal until he's clear about the specifics of his sin. From Belezer, what does he do with the pasuk ba? Hai ba mayavadle. Problem is to teach us the second point of the Mishnah, to exempt a preoccupied person. We turn Talmud Beis. Misasek demai. Let's explore the context of this misasek. Either chalav b'arayis chayev. If he was misasek while he was eating forbidden materials, chaylev, or involved in arayis, he would be chayev even though he's preoccupied. That's an exception to the rule. The Amar Rachman Shmuel, a misasek, even if he's preoccupied, if he engages in improper consumption, b'chalavim, or relations of arayis, he's chayev shekenan, because in these he experienced pleasure, and that compensates for his preoccupation. Meaning, with respect to something where he's held accountable for doing a mas, a malacha, etc. There, it has to be done with targeted focus, with mindfulness, to be attributed to him. But in matters where it's about ingesting, about having hana, he's fully engaged in that hana, and it's attributed to him 100%, despite the fact that he was preoccupied. So that's not really up for discussion. Be masasek b'Shabbos, potter. Some change it to Ella. Rather, we're talking about a masasek on Shabbos. Regarding a melacha of Shabbos, he's trying to do A, he ended up doing B. Potter, my timing, why? Because it has to be focused. Meleches machshavas asur. Torah only forbids a melacha with intent, with purpose, with plan. Meleches machshavas, as opposed to preoccupied. Now, we have interesting machlekes in terms of the extent of this exemption. How far does it go? Machlekes between Abaye and Rava to define the definition of misasik that exempts him from melachos of Shabbos. L'Rava mishkachel. When to Rava, it's applied as follows. So Rava takes it a step further than Abaye. He says even kigoin, for instance, sheneskav lachtich. He had a big knife and he was cutting. He was detached. Esatology. He was cutting up the tomato, thinking it was sitting on his cow. It was detached already. He wasn't trying to do malacha, but he was trying to do this form of maaseh, the cutting, the act of cutting. It turns out that the tomato was running a root into the ground. Unbeknownst to him, it turns out that he was cutting off an attached tomato. That also qualifies as misasik. So although he was doing chaticha, cutting, detachment, but he was trying to detach something which, according to his mindset, was already detached. That's called misasik. He thought he was doing something permissible. That's called misasik. La Abaye, according to Abaye, he doesn't take it this far. It's only in a case of mishkachas that will apply kigoin, for instance, in a skavala bias atalish. He wasn't cutting and detaching and slicing. He was just lifting, picking the item off the counter. It's a totally different type of act. Turns out that it was rooted in the ground. Unbeknownst to him, he detached something from the ground. So here, what he intended on doing, and the actual result are worlds apart. Totally different maaseh. And that's why he's potter as misasek. We have a discussion. He has his tomato sitting on the counter. He's trying to lift it. An act of lifting, not cutting and detaching. Turns out, unbeknownst to him, it's running a root through the counter, and it's been detached through his lifting. Potter. His intent was lifting something mutter. He ended up cutting something aser. It's a totally different thing. My time, you know why? He wasn't even trying to cut anything. He wasn't trying to detach and to cut. So he's exempt. But lachtich is atalosh. So that's universal. Everybody agrees. But lachtich is atalosh. But if he was trying to cut a tomato, he had a knife and he was cutting it, which is very similar in nature to detaching. It's cutting, detaching. But he was trying to do heter. not realizing that it was attached to the ground. It turns out he was cutting as a mechubar. Abaya machayev, he's chayev a korban because the yichavan l'shum chaticha. Fact is, he was intending to make a cut, which is very close in nature to what happened. So, although in terms of the halachic, realm of things, he was on a different track. He was cutting something which was permissible in his mind. It turned out that it was forbidden, but it's close enough to be considered just a plain shkaga. That's not a misasek, because the acts are close enough in nature to relate to each other. Rav Amar, no way. Worlds apart, pater. True, he was cutting. He's cutting a tomato on his counter. He wasn't trying to attach something off the ground. And that's why it's pater. So thus far, we have a form of misasik where his intent was heter, which resulted in isra. As we're going to see later, Shmuel actually holds it applies even more than that. Even if he was intending on doing something isra. But one type of isra, one type of malacha, and the result was a different type of malacha. That's also under the misasik umbrella in his pater. We'll get back to that a bit later. But first, let's go back to the Mishnah. Regarding the first point, what level of awareness, what degree of clarity is required to trigger the chatos? We had some examples where you had the chaylev and the noiser, the malacha and ben hashmoshes, between Shabbos and Yom Kippur, and Yesi says, no, that's not up for discussion. Because in that case, it's very possible that part of the malacha happened in the Shabbos time zone and half on the Yom Kippur time zone, which case is pater anyways. Tanya, we have a brayso Amal and Rabbi Yosef. Yosef turned to Chacham, Dikdakta Machra, you prevailed over me in your arguments. My Amarli, what did they tell him, which elicited this concession? The Amarlo Dikdakta Machra. Amarli, this is what they told him. True. A malacha which has long durations, you can speculate that perhaps that's what happened. Half here, half there. But let's say a malacha which has a very short, brief duration. A quick malacha. He could be a ben hashmashas ma'u. He lifted something ben hashmashas off the ground. Rabbi Gershom says we're going like the shita that you don't have to put it down to be chayiv on account of carrying. Right? So just lifting it from the Rosh Hashanah, bring it out, that's already enough. It's not going to happen in a millisecond. What would you say in that case? There's nothing to split. It happened either there or here. No, I'm going to lose. He told me you're right. You got me there. Why? Why did he concede? Namely, he could have responded still. Even this very short malacha can still be split into two. 1 millisecond was yesterday, 1 millisecond the next day. Actually, it's what he told him. He tried to debate me. Well, at least you haven't really prevailed. Because after all, it can be split into two, and you have no basis for liability. Ask the Gemara, okay, the worst case scenario, part of the malacha happened on Shabbos, but the conclusion happened after Ben Hashmos and Kippur. And that should be enough according to Eliezer. If the conclusion happened now, you don't need the whole preparation, you don't need the whole shiur, because it's the conclusion which makes it happen. Well, Rabbi Yosef, according to Rabbi Yosef's position, Gemar malacha, Rabbi Eliezer pata, according to Rabbi Eliezer, completing a malacha is not sufficient to obligate him. We find that mission there, according to Rabbi Eliezer, the conclusion is what counts. It's not Rabbi Eliezer. So to be liable for weaving, you have to, if you're starting, it takes 3 rows of threads to establish the weave. So the shear is 3 chutin, but once you have a partially woven bag and you just add 1 thread, that's enough. Even though it's not really a full shear, because you see that adding and completing gives it significance. Here as well, the conclusion of the malacha should be sufficient. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Eliezer, Master Rabbi Eliezer had a different version. According to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Eliezer, Ushnayim ala org chayiv. To establish the weave, you have to start with 3. But there on in, you don't need 3, but you need 2. At a share of significance. You see, even when you're concluding, you still need a full shear. And that was the basis of Rabbi Yossi's argument. You can do malacha ben hashmoshes. Part could have happened yesterday, part tomorrow. Part on this side of the ben hashmoshes, part on the other side. You'll never know. You can't hold him accountable. Amar Yehuda. The fellow doesn't have the specifics about what he did. Rabbi Yeshua says exempt from chatas. What about Asham Tali? Is that an option? Rabbi Yehuda, no way. Paitrai, Hoy Rabbi Yeshua, Af Asham Tali, Tanya. Rabbi Yehuda added explained the brayso that in fact Paitrai, Hoy Rabbi Yeshua, Af Asham Tali. There's no Asham Tali for this fellow because Asham Tali is specific to an unknown. An unknown to the extent that he doesn't know if he sinned at all. Shenemar, the pasuk by Asham Tali says Kisechta v'layada. He doesn't know if he sinned. As opposed to this fellow who knows full and well that he sinned, just not sure about the specifics. Shimon disagrees. Of course, he brings Asham Tali. Asham Tali. In fact, this is the kind of fellow that brings Asham Tali. Look at the pasuk, which says, "V'asa he committed, v'layada he doesn't know which one, but he's talking about a fellow who did violate. Which is a perfect fit to this fellow. V'zelayada mayasa. This fellow did it, he doesn't know which one. Of course he brings Asham Tali. Actually, Aval Safik Achal Chelav Sefik Liyachal, but in the other case, where he's not sure if he even ate Chelav, that you can even actually question. Is he eligible for Asham Tali? Say V'shalab, you can wonder about him. Maybe Asham Tali in love, whether or not he's eligible. So according to Rav Shimon, the tables turn, just the opposite. Our fellow is more of a candidate for Asham Tali than the other fellow who's not sure if he sinned at all. Now, what did he mean to say? Really? We're going to exempt the other fellow from Asham Tali? Mayavela, what's the conclusion on this? Tashma, we have a brayso where in fact he applied Asham Tali in both cases. Tashma, chata v'lo b'ma chata. So this is the case of our Mishnah. He did a chet v'lo. He's not sure b'ma chata, the specifics, the nature of his chet. Oi! Here comes the classic. Savik chata, savik lo chata. He has a suffix whether or not he sinned at all. In both cases, maybe Asham Tali. Asham Tali, in fact, is in place. Now, who's speaking? Obviously, it's Rabbi Shimon, who applies Asham Tali in the first case as well. Man shaman alei da'amar. Who's the one who's known to hold that chata ve'en yado b'may chata? A fellow did a chet, but not sure which one. Maybe he brings it Asham Tali. That's Rabbi Shimon speaking. But Katani and the brayso, however, continues and applies it to the classic case as well. Safik chata, safik lechata. Maybe he does bring it Asham Tali, so that confirms it. Shema minam. Now we know Svili Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon, in fact, holds Asham Tali is brought in both cases. Likewise, in Safik chata, safik lechata, maybe Asham Tali. Rabbi Shimon Shazuri, Rabbi Shimon Omer Nechlu v'chulu came out of Malaymar. Okay, back to Mesasik, which is the second half of our discussion. There was no direct intent for this Masa. He was preoccupied, busy with something else. Whether that something else was something mutter, which is a very basic Mesasik, or, as we're going to see, even if he was trying to do one malach, he did something else. Or, even if he was engaged in picking fruit. Pick the date instead of the fig. It also qualifies for the Mesasik exemption. Amar Rav Nachman Shmuel. Firstly, here is an exception to the rule. As we said before, Mesasik b'chalavim, a Mesasik regarding eating fat, eating forbidden foods, v'arayis, chayav. Shkeinen b'chud the hano, a factor which attributes it to the person regardless of his lack of focus. But Mesasik regarding Melachas of Shabbos, Mesasik of Shabbos is Pata. Why? Melachas Machshav, a thoughtful act, Asrotar. Amali Rav Nachman. Really? Every Mesasik is Pata? Well, Tinoikis. Here's a classic case of Mesasik. Tinoikis. The male was called to the bris. Twins. One needs a bris on Shabbos, one on Sunday. And mixed up the kids. He did the Sunday kid on Shabbos. Of course, the milah is a malacha of chayvel, making a wound. Here's a prime example of misasik. He was intending to do this kid and did the other one. With Tanan, we have a Mishnah. He's accountable. With Tanan, he had two babies. One to do the meal on Shabbos, the other one on Sunday. He confused it. He did the Sunday baby b'Shabbos. Because he did a malacha. Rabbi Shua poiter, but Rabbi Shua only exempts not because of misasik. No, that's not why. It's because he was engaged in doing a mitzvah, so he gets a special pass. Ad kan poiter Rabbi Shua. Rabbi Shua only exempts him because he always told about mitzvah. The person was on the mitzvah route, even though he didn't actually accomplish a mitzvah, it turned out to be the wrong baby, he gets a special, pass, potter. Aval misasik, but davar lav mitzvah. However, if he was engaged in a non-mitzvah act, even though he was a misasik, trying to do A, ended up doing B, I feel Rabbi Shua machayev. Even Rabbi Shua would obligate him. According to you, Shmuel, every misasik is potter. Amar he says to him, no, here it's different. Here's another exception to the misasik exemption. It's chayvel, inflicting a wound. You see, it's very different than your standard malacha, which is typically a constructive, positive act of building, of accomplishing. Malachas machsha. Inflicting a wound is actually destructive. It's a malacha of a destructive nature. So over here, you don't have to have that intent, that purposeful intent, because by its very essence, by very nature, it's a destructive act. It's just a malacha. By its just very essence, by its default, without that personal contribution of the doer. So just as it's chayiv despite being something negative and destructive, which is not, which is atypical, likewise doesn't have this melechas machshavas requirement, and even a misasik would be chayiv. After all, it resulted in a malacha, irrespective of what his mind was involved in. He says, Hanach letenaikos. Let's put aside this case of the babies, which is a malacha. Yeah, but it's a destructive malacha. It runs a different track. Chayiv, since he's liable, even if he's makalka when it comes to chabura, when it comes to inflicting wounds, and makalka is chayiv as well. So there is no melechas machshavas requirement. Misasik v'chabura chayiv. Likewise, misasik is chayiv because it's rooted in the melechas machshavas criterion, which doesn't apply. So you can't bring a kasha from here. But in a standard malacha, which is a positive, constructive act of doing, of building, melechas machshavas needs to have targeted focus. Eisvei Ravid l'Shmuel. Ravid asked another kasha to Shmuel. You say every masasik is potter. Let's take a look at the Mishnah. Rida Imer, Afilu Maskav look at Einim, look at Anovim, he intended to pick the figs, he did the grapes, or the opposite, Anovim, look at Einim, Shchoris, look at Levonis, the dark ones, the light ones, Levonis, the light figs, look at and pick the Shchoris. Rabbi Lezer Machayev Chatas, Rabbi Lezer says it's Chayev, Rabbi Shua Poiter. And the question is why? Is he Chayev according to Rabbi Lezer? V'acham Esasaku. He's misasik. He's trying to do A and they're doing B. Rabbi Shua Namile Kapata. Rabbi Shua only exempts him in this case. El Be'mina Lamina. Because there was such a wide gap between the intent and the result. The intent was figs, the result was grapes. Aval, but imagine B'chadmin, if it's the same type, figs, even though it was the wrong fig, Afilu Rabbi Shua Machayev, Rabbi Shua would obligate him, which is a direct contradiction to you, Shmuel, who says any form of misasik, any form of preoccupation exempts you. Amalei, he turned to whoever, Yehuda Shenana, my sharp one. So he complimented him, but he clarified it. He says, look, leave the Mishnah and come follow me. Meaning, let me explain to you the true intent of the Mishnah. It's different than what you think in terms of the surface understanding of the Mishnah. Actually, it's much more complex than it looks on the surface. We're talking about a unique case where actually the result was exactly as his intent, with some twists and turns in the way. The malaka, the picker, it slipped his mind what he had in mind to pick. But ultimately, Hashem was Mesavev Kol Asiba, since Hashem arranged, then actually he carried out his intention. He fulfilled his plan. He tried to pick the grapes. That was his plan. That was his kavanah. Then he got a phone call from him, and he got confused, and he forgot what he was doing. And he's thinking, okay, I need figs, and his hand is going to the figs. And like the Rabbi Sharbeinu with the malach with the coals, and his hand veered over to the grapes, and he got the grapes. So ultimately, the result was identical to his intent. His hand shifted over to the grapes, and he picked the grapes. It's not your classic Masasik, where he's trying to do A, ended up doing B. Here he's trying to do A, ended up doing A, with some twists and turns in the middle. That's the point of Machlekes. That's why you can understand there's liability here, because ultimately he did achieve his intent. So Rabbi Lezer Savar, great. His plan came to fruition. That's enough to obligate him. Rabbi Shua Savar, that's not enough, because his machshava, his thinking process, as he was doing the malacha, was in a totally different direction, and that's required to obligate him. You need full focus, full attention, and this doesn't cut it. Rabbi Shua Savar Harili Nasa Kavanasai Machshavta. True, the kavanah, the initial intent, the plan, came to be, but the machshava, what was going through his mind as he's doing the ma'aseh, was for the figs, which was not fulfilled. And that also qualifies for a form of misasik, and that's why he's pater. But all agree in your classic misasik, he was trying to do A, ended up doing B. Says Shmuel, all agree he's pater. Okay, so let's recap the sugya. Firstly, what type of yediyah, what type of awareness is required to trigger a chatos? According to Rishua, specificity. You have to know exactly the chet that was done. Otherwise, he's pater from a chatos. What about Hashem Tali? According to Reb Shimon, there will be an Hashem Tali in this case. Yes. According to Rabbi Eliezer, he's chai b'chatos. After all, he's aware that he sinned. Specifics. And that it's not really required. Then we shifted over to another aspect of Asher Chata Ba. Targeted focus during the actual sin is required to hold him accountable. We have some exceptions, first of all, Chalav Marayis, because of the anal factor, and Chabura, where Melech Machshavas is not a requirement. But otherwise, you need Melech Machshavas. You need Ashachata Ba. Mesasik is pater. We have different forms of Mesasik. A very basic one is you're trying to do Heter, did Isser. We have two forms of that, Abai Varava. We had a case, Shmuel's halach, which is even if he's trying to do Isser, but he was doing Isser A, the result was Isser B, he's pater. Then we have a more complex case. The intent was Isser A, and the result was Isser B. But in the middle he got confused. Actually, he was attempting to do something else. But ultimately he did the right thing. That's subject to machlekes. Rabbi Lezer says, cut it. Suffices for chiv. It's close enough. Rabbi Shua says no. It's also considered under the misasik umbrella and his pater. Okay, pick up at the Shem tomorrow. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha.